creates psychological proximity in the absence of physical proximity. So step outside your comfort zone. It's not about you. It's about them. And what is something that would make them feel more comfortable? It's video.
Tips from Trestle is brought to you by eMenu Choice Point of Sale, Wiseox AI, and Benny Keith Food Service. Welcome to Tips from Trestle, the Senior Living Food and Hospitality Podcast. This podcast explores the senior living industry with a unique focus on food, hospitality, and the community experience. I'm your host, Aaron Fish. My goal for this podcast: educate, inform, and inspire leaders in senior living. How? By bringing the resident and customer experience to the front of mind in our industry. We should bring the passionate spirit of food and hospitality to everything that we do and everyone we serve each and every day. So what are we waiting for? Let's get to it. Today on Tips from Trestle, I'm joined by Christie Freeze. Christie is a video vanguard, senior care guide, and author of Roadmap for Elder Care, who brings over a decade of experience in the senior living space to her roles as host of The Senior Living Sizzle and Good Day Senior Living. With a passion for meaningful connections, she specializes in helping senior living and multifamily operators connect their sales teams to prospects, referral partners, and communities through personalized branded video communication. Christie currently serves as the Partnership Growth Manager at Heart Legacy and Community Outreach Coordinator at Indiana Parkinson Foundation, while also leading her own venture, Care by Christie, founded in 2020. Her philosophy centers on the belief that effective communication builds trust, particularly when delivered in a personalized and authentic way that showcases sincerity and enthusiasm.
Mic drop. I think we could probably just wrap it up. Yeah, that's good. All right.
Christie, thanks for being here.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I am honored to be a guest.
We are here live at the Alabama Assisted Living Association Spring Conference, and you presented earlier today on video.
Yes.
So I'd love for you to give us a little bit about that, about your presentation, so we can dive in.
Yeah, so the presentation was titled Leads to Leases to Loyalty, a lot of L's. And the concept is converting those leads into leases and then nurturing those leases into becoming long-term loyal referral partners and doing those things through video. It's how we build trust. It's a great way for us to really just put a face to the name and start to build that psychological proximity.
That's so valuable. And what I think I talked to some people about this last year, but this idea that video is more and more important.
Yes.
And so talk to me and our listeners a little bit about how you see video and how video gets used to make that connection through those 3 L's.
Yeah. So one of the quotes that I shared in my presentation today comes from the book Rehumanize Your Business. The quote is that video creates psychological proximity in the absence of physical proximity. And so at the core, what that means is that's a way for us to build trust. And I believe that in the industry that we serve, trust building should be our number one priority.
Absolutely.
And we can't necessarily do it through plain black and white faceless text on a screen. So video allows us a vehicle to do that.
Yeah, it makes that connection. I've realized when I do my own social media promotion, like I can reshare images or I can share great text content and people engage with it. But it's not nearly the same as when I'm talking or when they listen to the podcast, for example.
It's just hitting people on all of the levels in which they learn, in which they retain. Another fun stat that I shared today was that 95% of a message is retained when it's consumed via video versus just 10% when it's consumed via plain text.
It reminds me of when I tell people about how people experience food, right? It's not just the taste, it's the smell and the sights. So it's the immersion.
Yeah, the whole experience. And one of the things that we talked about in my presentation today was when a new lead comes in. And if people heard nothing else from my presentation today, I was so adamant that they hear the inbound lead cadence that I suggested. Because when people are reaching out to us, especially if they're coming through a third-party lead source, they're being reached out to by like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 other communities. And a way for us to stand out and build trust quickly is to send a quick introduction video and start to have that psychological proximity built before
Yeah.
they can even show up to our community.
Yeah.
And it's hard to ghost when you know that Aaron or Christy are waiting for you at the community. And, I asked that today of the audience is how many people have an awesome conversation on the phone.
Yeah.
And that family is like, oh, I'm so excited to bring myself and my loved one. We can't wait to tour your community. And then they don't show up.
Yeah.
And it's harder to not show up when you know that a person that cares about you is waiting for you. And sending those pre-tour reminders reduces no-shows by 60%.
Wow. That's a pretty significant number.
Yeah, that you could create one time and use over and over again. Like we talked a lot today about evergreen versus burst video.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yes, evergreen videos, first of all, save me so much time. But having a video that doesn't say anyone's name, it doesn't say the day of the week, it just says, hi, I'm Christy from ABC Community. Looking forward to connecting with you, answering your questions, being a good guide and resource for you. That still makes an incredible impact. And same thing with the pre-tour. That can be evergreen. That can be something that is, hi, I'm Christy. Yeah. Here's where you park. Here's the entrance that you need to come in, and give them the expectation of what's going to go like, who's waiting for me. And it removes that mystery and that fear barrier that keeps people from showing up.
Because they know who they're looking for.
They know who they're looking for.
Yeah. So we dabble in marketing and sales a little bit. So when I can listen to you talk about creating evergreen videos that welcome people, how would you recommend communities or operators look at using those other individuals, maybe your chef, activities director, as a part of this process?
Okay, so how our video tool works at Heart Legacy Sales Mail. Sales Mail is the actual video tool itself. And Sales Mail is simply just a vehicle, subscription-based. So it's unlimited users at each community. And I say that because we encourage dining, directors of nursing or the clinical team, activities teams, executive directors. I've even had maintenance folks lean in, because how cool would it be, right, for an adult child to know who is going into their loved one's home to change out that light bulb. But I've had a lot of success with dining directors who are making their meal of the day, or maybe it's the special of the day, especially for new folks moving in. And so if you can reassure them in a way that they can see it, hear it, feel it, almost feel like they can taste it or eat it, that is really how we're going to nurture those folks into long-term referral partners, because we did such a good job on the front end.
When you think about creating those videos, how do you blend those into maybe the more personalization of, well, I know that Betty Sue is a real big fan of watercolors and you've got a great program. How does that fit into all of this?
Yeah. So I really encourage teams, and we do as just our company culture, is to just capture content. Capture. And we talked about a lot about evergreen videos. And so let's talk about personalized videos really quickly, because when you tell me that Betty Sue loves watercolors, she's not getting a canned evergreen video.
Right.
She needs a video that says, hey, Betty Sue, I learned today that you love watercolors, and this is the program that we have that supports that. And we can't wait for you to come back for our next class. That's the video that she needs to get. She's not getting it from any of your competitors.
Right.
And that's the video that in her mind, she says, Aaron really listened to me during that tour. And he really heard what I said and knew that those things were important to me.
Yeah.
And so now we get to reflect that back to her in a way that means something, and it's building that trust proximity well before she moves in.
So let's go back to your 3 L's.
Leads to leases.
So I think everybody understands the leads to leases.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about the loyalty piece, right? Because we think about, okay, well, we've got them, all these great videos. We got them in, they signed the contract. Now they're living with us. How does the loyalty piece, how does video play into that? How do we keep them engaged?
Yeah.
Technology continues to drive changes in senior care, and that includes food service. eMenu Choice is an award-winning point-of-service application for managing the dining function in senior living communities. This mobile, touchscreen-enabled software enhances the dining experience for residents while streamlining processes for staff. The flexibility and functionality of eMenu Choice makes it an effective solution for any type of senior living environment, from independent and assisted living to skilled nursing facilities. It works for production kitchens or restaurant-style service with options for per meal or a la carte pricing, and accommodates a variety of payments, including bill to account, meal credits, and credit cards. Created by a senior care provider with more than a century of experience serving older adults, eMenu Choice eliminates communication barriers between staff and residents while enabling person-centered choices and greater resident satisfaction. eMenu Choice, transforming dining for senior living.
Right.
I think that having come from the sales and marketing background myself, it's really easy to slip into that because as a sales and a marketing person, you do, right? As an operations team, and even as a sales and marketing team, there are ways that we can still leverage personalized video throughout that experience. And so one of those ways is having the executive director, maybe it's 30 days or 60 days after someone's moved in, reach out to the family through video and say, how was your experience moving in? How was this whole process? Can you give us feedback, good, bad, or indifferent? Another thing I'm really encouraging teams to do is to leverage video in the ask of a referral or a review on Google.
Okay.
So giving them the means to click that Google review, but also why are we asking them that? We're asking them it because we want other prospects to see what the experience is like and what the journey is like, not just to move our own communities up in the Google rankings, which doesn't
hurt at all.
not terrible, but that's not the purpose, and that shouldn't be our purpose.
Right.
And when you reach out to your existing residents to say, give me feedback, tell me what's working, tell me what's not working, that starts to build that loyalty piece because people just want to feel seen and heard.
Yeah.
And then when it comes time to ask for referrals, their friends are typically your best bet when it comes to that.
Do you ever recommend getting some of those high influential residents to get on video
Yes.
to help create some of this content?
Yes. So if you've got a resident ambassador.
Yes.
If you've got people that are already taking on that role in your community, whether their title is resident ambassador or not.
Right.
But there's a really good spokesperson for your community. I used to do that all the time where I would have, let's call her Betty Sue again, join me for a video if she met someone on the tour.
Okay.
So if we just met you, Aaron, on the tour, I would say, hey, Betty Sue, we're about to make a quick follow-up video for Aaron. And she'd be like, hey, wait for you to move in. I can't wait to be neighbors. We're looking so forward to having you here. And that over time starts to build that up.
Okay. And then how do you find residents respond to that engagement? Do you find that you get one or two and then, oh, hey, I can do this, or they get more comfortable with it? Because I would imagine that video is probably a little bit out of there for the resident.
Yeah.
For the resident.
And that's something we talked a lot about in my presentation today. So I would love to share some best practices and
please
tips when
do.
we get there. But this tool specifically, video in general, is really more being used by us as the team, the adult children, perhaps the staff, but they're feeling more and more comfortable to be in it with us.
Okay.
And so I think it's just like us leading by example and showing them why we would do this. I asked the audience today to raise their hands if they felt comfortable on camera. And I know you're all shocked to learn no one raised their hands, but don't worry. We talked through it. And some of the things that I encourage end users to think about is you look and sound the exact same as you do if someone shows up for a tour. I asked the audience today, I said, if somebody were to call you and say, I'm ready to come take a tour in an hour, what would you say?
Yeah, let's do that.
Obviously. And I say that because people are typically resistant because they don't like what they look and sound like. They already got dressed and ready for work today.
Yeah.
And that prospect's going to see you soon.
Yeah.
So those are, just reframing how we view it. Something that Erin talked about in her presentation is just shifting our thoughts and shifting our mindset around things.
Yeah.
Ultimately results in how we see them and how we perceive them. And so I had the entire audience today pull out their phones, open their camera, slide it to video. I put a script up on the screen, a video inquiry response script, and had them just do it amongst themselves so that they could just see that going through the steps wasn't as scary. And I just had a gal come up to me right before I came in here that said she sent 3 videos to prospects that she had missed on Friday and 1 today.
Okay.
And she just went outside and cranked out 3 videos for those people and sent them via text.
Nice.
And I was like, yes.
Yeah.
You're brave. Be brave. Be brave.
Well, and that, I guess, is an important point, right? Because I think when people think about, okay, we're going to create this video and it's going to be there forever, it's got to be like this overly produced, like I got to have cameras and lights and do all of that kind of stuff.
None of those things are necessary. None of them. I think of them as a video voicemail.
Okay.
My favorite piece of advice is if you think of it as a video voicemail, hey, Christie, it was great to meet you today. Oh, I had one more question. This, and this. Looking forward to hearing from you. Bye for now.
Yeah.
That's the exact same thing that you do in the video. And it's a relationship building tool. People don't want a polished, perfected produced video,
Yeah.
that is honestly going to do the opposite of what we want it to do. So my favorite advice here is when you're recording your video, if you like what you said when you said it, save it. I never go back and listen to myself. I never go back and watch myself, which honestly I should probably do.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that because even though I do a podcast and I'm on the camera all the time, I still have those moments where I'll record something and I'm like, oh, I got to watch that and make sure I did it right. Or I got to go back and did I say it too many times or something like that?
You should always leave your ums. Leave your ums where they are. People love the ums. People love the natural pause. I joked in there earlier that I'm normally like searching for my words in my videos and like this is who I am all the time.
Yeah.
And so it's more important that your authenticity is consistent than the attempt at perfection.
Yeah.
So people would just prefer us to be real human beings.
No, and that makes sense, right? Because again, it's about making that connection
Yeah.
that people can relate to.
Absolutely.
For sure. So we were talking earlier, you said we were going to come back to it. So I want to come back to the tips on how to get people to engage, how to get success, how to be successful, how to get comfortable.
Yeah.
So give us like your top 5 things that you think are the most critical.
Yes. Okay. So let's start at the beginning when it comes to, I often hear people say, Christy, when am I supposed to do this? Like when? I'm busy.
Yeah.
I'm like, I know. I did that role for almost a decade. And I know that an hour-long tour is not an hour-long tour.
Right.
It's actually like a 2 or 3 hour-long tour.
Yeah.
And that's okay. But when we have 3, 4, 5 of those in a day, it can be really hard to feel like, oh, I have to do the follow-up. I need to reach out to these people. When am I supposed to do this? And so video is saving people on average 2 hours a week in follow-up. And so I've been encouraging teams to, whether it's stand-up or a weekly meeting, 10 minutes before your stand-up, block it on your calendar to create your follow-up videos.
Okay.
10 minutes. You can create a copious deal.
Well, because you're only doing 30 or 45 seconds.
Correct.
I think that may be part of this too, right? Like I always think, well, I got to do 2 or 3 minutes.
No. And in fact, I would argue it should never be over 90 seconds.
Okay.
Yeah. 60 seconds is really a sweet spot. So we actually surveyed, we have like 7,000, 8,000 sales mail users, and we did a big, massive survey. And the average video length was 53 seconds. So 60 seconds or less is kind of a sweet spot. If you keep the video voicemail framework as your kind of like a cadence expectations, you'll fall within that like 45 to 90 seconds every time.
Yeah.
So that's a really good, like, how would I leave this in a voicemail? How would I say this in an email? Just say the same thing, but with your voice.
Yeah.
You should never have a script. Okay. I
Well,
realize
that's for evergreen content.
that's
Right.
and I created that because oftentimes I was being met with the resistance of, well, I don't know what to say.
Right.
And it kind of takes me back to what we talked about earlier. Like if you are a salesperson specifically, you got dressed and ready for work today, prepared to answer questions, prepared to be a guide and a resource. You have everything you need already to show up on video. And with that 10-minute block in the morning, you can crank out those videos that maybe you had a tour yesterday. I typically will record them on my phone in my sales mail app and hit done. And then later in the day when I have time, I'll copy and paste them into an email, send them through my CRM, text, however I was communicating with my prospect.
Yeah.
So that might be another pro tip is that you don't necessarily need to create video.
Okay.
I batch a lot of content. Create, and then I can trickle it out.
It makes a lot of sense because again, it's about where do I find the time?
Yes.
And you've got to sit down in your CRM. You got to put in your notes. You got to send out the follow-up.
Yeah. I will give just a
Video.
very low key shout out to Align, Sherpa, and Welcome Home because our integration with those CRMs is so beautiful that you can literally open up your sales mail app, create your video, find your contact or influencer, send it, and it logs it as a completed activity in the CRM with the link to your video.
Okay.
Just like one-stop shop. Yeah. And then that person can move on and take care of the next prospect or the next resident and keep it moving.
So getting residents engaged, what would be 1 or 2 things for that?
Yeah. So I would, again, find your resident ambassador, someone that when you're on a tour, they're always the person that you're like, ooh, we better make sure they meet Betty Sue because she loves it here and she's going to sell it better than us.
Yeah.
I would do one of 2 things or both. I would interview her and ask why she loves it here.
Okay.
And then keep that in your queue of content that when you're ready to do some follow-up, you can fire off a quick video, say, don't take our word for it, hear it from Betty.
Gotcha.
The other thing is that you can have her be in it with you. And I think that having residents involved with you in your follow-up, that is really going to convert those folks into actual residents.
Yeah.
They're going to see somebody that they met on the tour that is invested in how it went and enjoyed meeting them and wants them to come back. We can do that till we're blue in the face. And they're like, yeah, it's because you're trying to sell me. But Betty does it. It feels different.
Yeah. And then kind of on those same lines, when I think about the chef or the activities director is probably less of a concern, but it's interesting how sometimes they can be really outgoing with their residents, but kind of introverted when it comes to anything else. So when you're trying to engage those other departments who are like, well, you're the salesperson, you can do the videos. Like, I need to cook, or I need to go make sure bingo is set up. How do you get them to understand that it's invaluable for them to be a part of this process?
So I actually just learned a lot more about this from Aaron Thompson's presentation on the power of influence and how when that executive director or sales director, whoever is leading the charge in the community, shares why they're leading the charge in the community. So maybe it's to create an awesome place for people to live and work. Or maybe it's because we're trying to take care of an older population who needs us. And when you shift it as to why we're doing this, it gets the other department heads a little bit more invested. And, I've seen both sides of it where whether it's dining or clinical or activities, they don't necessarily want to have their own sales mail video account.
Right.
But they can be convinced to just say why they love being here and why they love doing what they do. And then again, those are videos to just keep in the queue a little bit where, we heard that dining is important.
Out it goes.
Meet our dining director. And so I'm a really big fan of having content that we're going to need it. And that is going to look like an introduction from your executive director, dining, clinical, maintenance even. And even if you're capturing the video that just says, tell me in 30, 45 seconds what you love most about being here, why you love this community, that is how you can involve them. And then what's going to happen? Because back to the beginning, the psychological proximity quote, prospects are going to tour and they're going to see that dining director or see that clinical director. And they're going to be like, I feel like I've already met you. Like today on the way to this presentation, somebody stopped me in the elevator and she was like, I know you from LinkedIn. And I was like, excellent.
Yes.
That's because I'm on video a lot. But it makes us feel like we know people before we actually do.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we wrap up here, what is the one thread you want everybody to take away from this conversation? What's that one 30-second thing that they need to know and take and do tomorrow to be successful with video?
Create psychological proximity in the absence of physical proximity. So step outside your comfort zone. It's not about you. It's about them. And what is something that would make them feel more comfortable? It's video. And so if that means stepping outside your comfort zone to show up on it for 45 seconds, do that because it will be worth it and you will reap the benefits 20 times over.
Perfect. How can the listeners connect with you, learn more about how they can work with you?
Okay, so definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. That's where I hang out the most. But you can also visit salesmail.com. But it's salesmail.com. And actually on my LinkedIn, the visit my website link will take you to our website. You can request a demo. You can even request now for us to send you a sales mail. Spoiler alert, it's me on the sales mail. Act surprised.
How am I not surprised?
Well, it's a good way to see it in action. So even just thanking referral partners, introducing myself to new referrals or prospects.
Yeah.
I've been using it in that way for a really long time. So happy to connect with anyone and help them in any way I can.
Awesome. Well, Christie, thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
And being a guest here on Tips from Trestle.
I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks again for tuning in. Please follow, like, and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. And be sure to follow us on social media at Tips from Trestle. You can also learn more about the work I do by following me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and even TikTok. And be sure to check out Trestle Hospitality Concepts at www.trestlehospitalityconcepts.com. I'm your host, Aaron Fish, and this has been another episode of Tips from Trestle.